Hey, welcome to episode 185 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Dratnos, joined by Tettles and Trell as always, and our special guest this week is Theun. Hello.
Yo, what's up? Thanks for having me.
Yo, thank you for being here. This week we are going to talk with you about one of the main topics is going to be your healer. You are a healer.
I am a healer, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so
Unfortunately.
sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You made a video recently that has gained quite a bit of traction and that we're going to talk about this week, which is basically, well, it's titled "Why Healing Sucks in Dragonflight." And
Good title.
Yeah,
Good
very
title.
very clickbaity. That's what we do over here.
yeah, that's a good strat. That's a good strat. So that's going to be the main topic, one of the main topics this week as well, and then we'll talk a little bit about the meta and stuff too. But before we get into that, quick check-in. How's everything been going? Theun, it's been a while since we've had you on the show. How have things been going since then? How's rating and stuff been?
Rating's good, so hours are a lot less now, which is a lot nicer for my life, but unfortunately working a lot more, so growing up sucks. Wish I was 16 again.
So since you've been on, you stopped rating in BDG, but now you're doing analyst stuff for them, and then you're rating in Infinity. Is that right?
I did analyst stuff for BDG last tier, so like in Vault of the Incarnates, and then
Okay.
stopped doing that this tier because I got a new job and stuff. So now I'm rating in Infinity, which has been a lot of fun. So
Okay, so now you just have infinite content hours to make videos on why healing sucks in Dragonflight. I understand now.
yeah, something like that.
This weekend we also have TGP finals coming up, which should be pretty exciting. Although there is a likelihood that the key level is going to not be as high as it was during the group weekends due to the nerfs to the best comp, which I actually don't think is that big of a deal for TGP necessarily, like for how exciting it'll be to watch. But I am a little bit on the live side of things. Keys are getting a little bit.
Okay, first of all, there's nobody playing the game. Like, it is barren. But
Trell,
also,
look at this.
the titles went down.
Yeah, I heard about that. Do you know? Is that like people getting banned or something?
No, it's character. So characters above the cutoff. It's top 0.1%. So if 4,000 new people create new characters, that's an extra, 4 or 40 spots. One of those, whatever the percentage is.
Okay.
And so there are 4 more slots than there were, or 6 more slots than there were at the end of last week. And that increase in size is more than the increase in score that's been gained so far this week in the US. So in the US this week so far, the title has gone down by 0.1 points. Same in EU. In Taiwan, it stayed flat. In Korea, it's gone down by 3.5 points. And this, by comparison, in previous weeks, we've had as much as a plus 100 point week when Augmentation Evoker was introduced. So definitely
That's crazy.
Yeah, the curve is
Plus 100 points on one week, not even just both tyrannical and fortified,
Yeah.
but on 1 week is crazy shit. That's like, was it 3.5 key levels, 2.5 key levels per?
Yeah, it's a lot. So this is a suspicious looking time for the title push and a novel curve. We've never seen this curve before on the M plus score side of things. So hopefully, I think hopefully there should be some dungeon nerfs. That's what I would do if I was Blizzard, is deploy some nerfs to the dungeons, maybe some flat nerfs, and also like nerf all the things that make Mass Dispel OP, especially.
I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like the game really hit. Okay. So something that Blizzard's done, and I think it's actually quite good, is they've made the game a lot more seasonal. You don't have to play all the time. You're able to kind of jump in and out as you want to. Able to play the content just as you please. But now one of the things that I do feel like they've kind of made a little bit of an error in is they ruined. I don't want to say ruined this Mythic Plus season, but they made this Mythic Plus season so less enticing to push that pretty much everybody stopped. And I feel like nobody is pushing keys anymore.
Yeah, I have one person online in my guild right now, so
Yeah, like on top of that, it's like the people I was playing with, all of us just stopped playing. The only reason I'm still playing is because I decided to roll an alt and work on something else that was like a new challenge rather than trying to get more score on the character I was already playing. But I think other than that, everybody's just like, I'll just go play another game. This is not worth my time.
I stopped 2 weeks ago, and I resigned myself to, if I get the title, I get the title. If I don't, it's fine.
Yeah, any Baldur's Gate 3 or Baldur's Gate 3 fans? Anyone
Isn't
playing
that
that? Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I've been playing a little bit of the Gate. Got a multiplayer campaign, so consuming it a little bit more slowly than if I was single player blasting it. But yeah, it's that's a good game. New Path of Exile League tomorrow as well, so there's gaming around. But I think it's still I kind of feel like at this point Blizzard should maybe think about it would be a radical decision, but like, what if we just pulled the trigger on starting a new season? Like, what if we just threw in?
Holy shit!
What if we
I
just
saw yeah.
threw in like Encrypted or something and did like a 2-month season with and like a slightly maybe a different dungeon pool or maybe the same one, and coincide it with several nerfs I mean, even just a new season would maybe be enough, and then hand out the old titles or whatever. Be like, okay,
I'm down.
They could do it with
no other affixes.
All
same
Dragonflight
buttons.
dungeons. They could literally just slam it with all Dragonflight dungeons or something.
yeah, something like that. I don't know. I think it would be I would be looking to do that, especially at this point. It's possible that it's 3 months still until we get a new season, right? Like, that's a lot.
I think the rumors
long
I heard was
time.
like probably November, probably
Yeah.
after BlizzCon. But
That's what I was kind of
yeah.
hearing too.
Yeah, because it seems unlikely that they would want to have a new patch launching like as or right before BlizzCon.
Yeah.
Although obviously they could, but not just for like high end players, but also for the devs that would be there and stuff. I assume that's something that they would delay by a couple of weeks to avoid.
I mean, because BlizzCon wouldn't move, but the WoW patch
Right.
is flexible enough
Yeah.
that it could move 3 weeks or something like that. And
Yeah, exactly.
reasonable.
Or it could be well before. It could be like an early October patch, which
I saw some. I want to say it was on Reddit or something like that. Somebody was like mapping out like patch cadence over the past couple of patches, basically since like Zereth Mortis, and it had the patch coming out like the second week of October,
yeah,
which is a bit before BlizzCon, but that seems unlikely.
that would definitely be rough for the high end WoW community that wanted to go to BlizzCon, but that's a pretty small community, all things considered, and maybe it's not worth them moving around stuff for. So if they did that, that would be the logic. But yeah, that would because there would be like presumably a Race to World First that would be happening right up to and maybe even over BlizzCon, which would impact at least a lot of the stuff that us and people we know have been planning. But
I just think it wouldn't be like. I think a lot of people would be pretty.
yeah, it's like I mean, it would only affect the people going to BlizzCon, right? Like that wanted to go there, which is a pretty small set of the WoW player base. But yeah, I personally selfishly hope they don't do that. But I'll have to see.
Same.
I would have to. I think I'd probably have to cancel my BlizzCon plans
Oh
at
yeah,
that point.
100%. I mean, that would be.
I got nothing to do.
I'm still going to BlizzCon no matter what. After that.
If there's like a Race to World First going on or something, I'm.
We want to do. We might do like a live BlizzCon or something, right?
Yeah, a podcast at BlizzCon, something like that.
Yeah.
That's we'll
That'd be
see
cool.
if one of those happens. That could be a vibe. So we'll see how everything pans out with that. There was an expectation. People were thinking that they were going to announce the patch date this week, but that ended up being a Hardcore Classic dev talk.
If you look at the comments on that YouTube video, that was a lot of sad people. So
I feel like we probably get a patch date soon, if I had to guess.
So we didn't actually get a 10.1 patch date until like a month before, which was a pretty stressful thing. This time around, there's a Gamescom coming up in Germany that people think maybe it gets announced there. If it doesn't get announced then maybe it'll be after 10.1.7, which is September.
So historically, Blizzard has announced stuff for WoW at Gamescom, but Blizzard hasn't had a WoW panel at Gamescom for the past like 2 Gamescoms. Do they have one this year?
I don't know. That's
yeah, I've not looked at it at all. So
Have they announced stuff at gaming conventions like that recently? I feel like it's been a long time since they've done anything.
No, I feel like
Yeah.
COVID. I think killed that for-
COVID kind of killed it.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Well, either way, we'll see, and whenever we get any dates or whatever, we'll of course talk about their implications here. There is a time walking 5-week event thing that would suggest a patch date of like the week before BlizzCon, and then maybe a raid the week after or something like that. But that's very
now we're really tinfoil hatty.
well. I mean, those sorts of things, like, they wouldn't release a patch in the middle of a, like last time they had one of those and it led right up nicely into the patch. So I think it's reasonably good
Okay.
circumstantial evidence, but I don't know. Either way, we'll wait till we get an actual announcement, of course. Let's move on, though, to talking about healing and the state of healing in Dragonflight. Now, Theun, you've released a great 20-minute video that we will link in the description and stuff if anybody wants to go and watch or listen to your thesis. What would you, I guess, what's the TLDR here of your take on why healing sucks in Dragonflight?
So this is like the first time, at least from what I remember, that healing in like Raid and Mythic Plus is like so vastly different. If you look at like the people running Mythic Plus right now, they're complaining that Mythic Plus is like too hard to heal or is just like difficult to heal, and then the raiders are like falling asleep during raid because there's just like nothing to heal anymore. And I think like a lot of it kind of stemmed from the fact that like Evoker launched really powerful in beta. And we knew it was really powerful. Every guild was playing like 2 of them in season 1. And instead of, this is like the first time that they kind of brought all of the other healers up to that level. And since then, we've really just been like really overpowered compared to the damage that we're taking in raid and like our health pools. And that's why we've seen like these 2 big health increases in season 1 and season 2, and nothing's really changed yet. So.
And as for on the Mythic Plus side, it's been quite interesting because they keep designing pretty significant healing checks. Yeah, where there's a lot of sink or swim mentality with being able to heal some of these bosses, where you gotta figure out how to get good to heal. I don't know, the last boss of Quarter Stars, and sometimes if you're like a Resto Shaman at the beginning of the expansion, maybe you can't heal the Raging Tempest.
It was rough. Yeah. Yeah. There's like a couple of hard healing checks in season 1, and then those got nerfed. And then a lot of it was like, JB screaming about, oh, you could do a 27 without a healer now. And then, sorry, random JB flame. And then in season 2, it's actually, they haven't touched it all that much. So like bosses like Kajin, third boss of Halls of Infusion, still has like a pretty good healing check. Second boss of Vortex Pinnacle, and the last one even, still have pretty good healing checks. So I've much prefer Mythic Plus to be more what it is now than what it was in Shadowlands, when we were doing everything possible to not heal because we just were going to do damage instead. So I'd much rather have healing checks, but I think the issue in Mythic Plus is like the damage events that happen on top of the AoE damage. So like the on the last boss of Vortex Pinnacle, you have like the chain lightning that hits someone for like their entire health pool, and then also the pulsing AoE damage. If you are in a pug and that person doesn't use like a defensive, they're probably just dead, and that doesn't feel fair. And then we also just don't have sufficient spot healing tools in our talent trees, is the other thing. So
how do you feel about like third boss Ultimon, especially if you get like targeted back to back or whatever with the bleed?
So Undad dragged me to a high. It was like a 25 Ultimon, like week 3 or something, and I was on my evoker. So we had 2 evokers, and it felt really
That's
sick.
trivial. That's
yeah,
trivial.
And then, I was like, oh, 2 evokers and a prop paladin. This is sick. Like, this feels so good. And then I did it on my disc priest, on like a 20, and I was like, it's just the payphone meme where it's like the one guy's sweating.
Yeah.
I was sweating. I mean, we died. We didn't complete that key. And it was really hard. And it's like, if you have the tools to deal with it, it's like trivial. But if you don't, man, it is rough. So.
I bet that 25 felt easier than a 22 as well.
Oh, it did. Yeah, I barely had any healing. I think I got out healed by the prop paladin on that one. So
I wouldn't be
sick.
shocked, especially with that group.
Yeah.
Now your piece came out, and there's also been a video from Jack as well that has, I think, some of the same sorts of ideas, which is basically like Raid and M Plus are moving in pretty different directions, and we'll link this as well. But it's tough, right? Like, it's tough to balance these 2 parts of the game, where in M Plus we're looking for like healers to have maybe more power to spot heal and have it be less about the defensives being pressed by the people. And then in Raid, we're looking for maybe a little bit less a little bit less power for the like a little bit less raid healing to be doable perhaps, and make that a little bit harder. Again, I think one common element between raid and M plus is maybe that the defensives that DPS players have and the power of health pot, health stone are too much of what causes somebody to live or die. Because like as a healer, if you go into Vortex Pinnacle and the hard part is whether your Chain Lightning target presses a defensive and not whether or not you're doing a good job of healing them.
Right.
Maybe that's
yeah.
like the one thing they could fix about it reasonably easily without hurting the raid / M plus balance.
Yeah, I think like healers kind of just lack a little bit of agency in Mythic Plus, and a lot of that is just through spot healing. I think that's like one of the reasons why so many people really liked Holy Paladin after the rework, is because they actually had really good like spot healing and like burst healing tools, and a lot of people really like it. Feels really good whenever you press like Holy Shock on a person's health bar and you can see it move, and most classes you can't right now. It almost like I was trying to come up with like an analogy for a DPS player that's never healed before, and the only thing I can kind of come up with was if a lot of the times healing feels like enhanced shamans pressed chain lightning, which is an AoE spell, in single target during progression this tier, and that's kind of what healing feels like. I'm pressing chain heal as my like single target heal, and that doesn't feel good because it's my best tool for it. So
yeah, I think the weakness of effects like Riptide is a really good
yeah, please God,
example of this expansion of like what the problem is and where the healing power lies in our comps.
I mean, why press Flash Heal or Healing Surge or any of the other shit whenever you can literally just AoE heal the whole entire time and get more value, honestly.
Yeah. And then in raid, I think like a large part of it is we just have like too much power. So after a damage event happens, you heal everyone up instantly. I was in the video, I was showing a clip of like Rashok, and it took an evoker like 3 seconds to heal up the bombs that blew up in P1 of Razageth, which like if you did Razageth, it was like super spiky, and like your health bar kind of just looked like a yo-yo. But we had the ability to like top people after these big damage events, and then I compared it to like Sludge Fist, which was probably still my favorite fight to heal. And like you just look at the health bars in Sludge Fist, and that they're just like not moving. It's not like you're not taking spike damage either. Like you still take these like bursts of damage, but like you're also not topping people instantly, and it just felt much better.
Right, because like with Rashok, it feels like if you're not literally topped when damage is about to happen, you're gonna die, right? Like that's kind of the rule, and then the healers are strong enough to literally top everybody between every damage wave.
And the rule for Sludge Fist was you needed to be over 85% HP whenever the boss was going to contact the pylon. Otherwise, you're going to die. But beyond that, you're fine.
Yeah, we actually had a weak aura on Sludge Fist for like if you were under like 65%, then it would kill you on like the 4th pillar slam, and like that's when you would need a Hellstone. And it's like 65%. Man, I am sweating trying to top someone instantly if they're dropping that low right before damage event happens right now.
And I think Razageth is a good example of like where that started this expansion, because Razageth was the 100% or dead in P1. Yeah.
True.
God, yeah, I had forgotten about the Razageth. But then you have obviously working with Volcanic Hearts. You have it with the Rashok Leap. You have it with the Ziskarn protocols. It's not even just like a one ability thing. It's every fight is I have to be completely topped, otherwise I'm going to die. But then you look at, I think that Magmarax is probably the only boss that's kind of similar to what you were describing looking for, Theun.
Yeah, Magmarax is kind of close. So the one caveat to Magmarax is like the first minute really doesn't do that much.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed actually I was helping a lot of like Resto Shamans because I'm a Resto Shaman main. And we have this cool tool on like WoW Analyzer that tracks, it indirectly tracks the average health of the raid that you're healing. Because it's like your average your mastery effectiveness on the fight. So if you have like 30% mastery effectiveness, that means your average raid HP was like 70%. And the average raid HP on Mythic Magmarax for Method, who got like world 3rd on that fight, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Was like 84%, which is really high for a boss that's just always doing damage. So That's the lowest mastery effectiveness I've ever seen from a Resto Shaman on progression ever since I've started playing the game. So, but yeah, there's just an interesting. A lot of people like do bring up Magmarax, and it does feel like it as like a player, but it's insane to like go back and actually check things, and it's not fun.
I will say this expansion, the power creep of personals has been a bit egregious. The amount of personal power that players in general have gotten. Everybody's got a button to be able to sustain themselves passively. Everybody has the ability to be able to have like 3 defensive button options just generally. Many classes also have like strong, like just multiple uses of strong personals, and then like a DR node or like an HP node that you're always talented into. And some classes have 20% HP nodes that you're talented into.
Yeah, have you seen the Paladin node? It's just like 20% HP, like 10% damage reduction.
Avoidance.
It's like how is that a talent, man? Like, what is that doing on there?
The DK one being literally 20% stamina is the craziest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, but you are correct. Like literally every single class has it. Even on Shaman, I think, is like notoriously kind of squishy compared to every other class right now. And I still feel like a tank on most of the time, like on my Shaman. And it's kind of insane comparing how many defensives you have currently compared to like every other expansion, basically.
For
So,
yourself,
Mage,
I need a beacon.
Mage has 6 defensive options, like 6 active defensive buttons they can press. It's actually insane.
I couldn't believe they were bitching that they needed more. That was crazy.
yeah.
One more thing I wanted to say about the like having a health pot at before a 65% health threshold or like an 85% threshold this season. I think as the DPS and tank players, it also is kind of non-intuitive to have to health pot when you're below 85% health before a raid hit. Like the 65% makes sense. You know, that's kind of like, oh, I'm at 40% health before this massive hit, I should probably use something. But if you're sitting at 80% this season and you're like, do I really use my health pot here? You know, unless someone says it in comms. It is definitely a weird play style.
Yeah, I had a really good clip on Nerzul Prague where I accidentally like blurted out like use a health stone because someone died from like 40% HP. And like, yeah, whenever you're 40%, you should probably use a health stone before a damage event. And then like go back and like look at Rashok Prague, and it's like, oh, can I really blame my Warlock for dying from like 82%?
I died from
95,
like,
yeah, it's like, I mean, like, you know, it's kind of whatever. I'm not going to yell at him for that. So
yeah,
like what is it? What is another one? Like Volcanic Heart or something? Or like, oh, Sarkareth Phase 1, like right before you go into the Glittering Surge, if you don't have like a personal pressed, I swear each tick is 65% of your HP.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, Sark P1, I feel like that is like enough damage that it's actually fun to have that style of like of healing to do, because unlike Rashok, where it's like that one very scary damage event every 25 seconds or something that you got to top for and then just dodging waves, Sarkareth P1 is just like 100 seconds of hell, which I don't know, I'm not a healer, but that looks more fun to me than the other ones. But I feel like that one shouldn't be possible because the healer power shouldn't be that high in raid, which brings us to solutions / suggestions for how to get out of this mess or how to improve things. They've obviously already kind of tried twice with these player health and monster damage increases, right? Do we think another one of those is a third one going to fix it? Is that
gonna get the third one?
Is third time's the charm. Yeah, I think so. If you ask like 10 healers what their opinions on how to fix healing currently, you probably are going to get like 15 different answers.
That's good.
And like none of them, like I don't think there's like one fix that would like fix anything, because like raid healing and Mythic Plus healing is just so different. So if you buff our HP again, then Riptide already feels bad, and it's going to feel even worse when we have 1,000,000 HP, right? And it's healing for 24k. So it's a tricky problem to solve, and kind of why I didn't really even offer solutions in the video that I made, because like I've thought about it a lot, and I still don't really have like a good solution that doesn't also involve like a lot of dev time to like like, oh, just give every healer a lot more talent tree options to spot heal. It's like, yeah, just like LMAO, just like add like 9 different talents for every single healing spec. Like, that's not super feasible within like a 1 patch cycle.
Meanwhile, you're worried about getting one shot 100 to 0 Mythic Plus.
Yeah,
it's
so
like so different.
Yeah, it's like a really tricky problem to solve. I do think probably the easiest one for them, and it's not going to be popular with the community, would be just like flat up like aura nerfing healers going into the following season, and then balancing the dungeons around them being that much weaker. Because they kind of did that this season, because we had like the HP increase, and because we're getting new dungeons every single season, like you can maybe get away with it. But it's still tricky. Like I don't know how they do it well without really messing up one game mode or the other.
Yeah, I think that so moving power out of the raid healing buttons into the spot healing buttons is a good thing to do. I think nerfing personals and nerfing health stone as well and health pot relatively are probably also good things to do. Making M plus more rot damage instead of one shottiness on the damage, I think, is also would go well with these things. Which they've done a lot of that over time. M plus has been moving in that direction. It's been good. You can look at Freehold from BFA versus Freehold now, aside from the enforcers, but like the bosses have moved in that direction nicely. So I think that's a good one. And I think that they should also make more use of the tech where some buttons do more healing in M plus than they do in raid. I think that would be a piece of text they should use more often and more healing spells.
They could also, like on that point, and I've heard this is actually really tricky to do. So like, obviously I'm not a developer, but this is just like the gamer side of me, is like this damage, like pistol shot or something does this much damage up until a level 25. And then that's the max that it will ever do. Like just cap it out at a certain level. That way, it's never going to legitimately one-shot you. I don't know if that's like also something that would be like.
What did they? They did it with what? Spiteful shades.
Yeah,
Spiteful's are capped at 20.
Yeah, thank God, by the way, because those things would
great.
murder you.
That was deserved.
Yeah, like maybe tech like that as well. But also with like on Tratnos's point, the doing that not only with healing spells but also like utility spells. Like if I have Mana Tide Totem, there's only one healer in my group. Can it just restore more mana or something? Like there's a lot of spells I think that would be like benefited from doing more in smaller person content.
Side note, is mana just giga fake now with Augmentation, Evoker, and Source of Magic plus Innervate and stuff like that? That mana is just a fake resource now, isn't it? In both raid, well, definitely in Mythic Plus with Source of Magic, but in both raid and Mythic Plus, it seems really stupid right now.
Oh, it's tricky because we've had 2 really OP mana trinkets from the raid. So we had Show Globe season 1, and that did a lot of work. And then it's still in the fight at like 0% mana a lot of the times. And then this time we have Rashok's Molten Heart. It's not quite as powerful as whatever. So mana is definitely like not super relevant currently, but I think if we didn't have a mana trinket, it would probably be pretty rough on some specs.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, whenever I don't play with HPAL and keys, I see mana issues all the time. So I think it's still an issue, at least from my POV.
Well, when was the last time you did play with an HPAL? It was before AUG came out, yeah?
Well, when I pug, I mean, I see priests a lot.
Oh, okay.
They run mana quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and especially if you're playing without Nog, which hopefully is something you will be allowed to do at some point. We'll see. So that's
I remember whenever I remember when they first buffed health pools. I remember Theun and I were talking about this because healers in season 1 were running into mana problems before they buffed health pools, and then they buffed health pools and it was like, oh good god, some of these healers are gonna really struggle for mana.
Yeah. Do you guys think they should limit AUG from buffing healers and tanks in any content, I guess?
Are you talking about Ebb and Might?
Objectively, yeah, probably.
It's tough because like it feels really good as a Brewmaster or Blood DK to get blistering scales. Like your class feels so much tankier with those. But
Shifting
for the
sands
purposes
too,
of not
right?
having augmentation be required, I think that that is a good thing for them to be looking at for M plus, because like that's part of the reason it's so good in M plus is it's not only the damage contribution, but it's making your tank and your healer so much stronger.
Yeah. The other reason I asked is I think there would be quite a few fights if augmentation existed this tier that you would straight up drop a healer and just replace it with an augmentation and just buff, like have that augmentation evoker buff 2 healers with like prescience and give them even might. And I think
I-
that would be enough.
I would say Squishy was running some numbers, and having like 2 or 3 augmentation evokers is the equivalent of having almost like one additional healer in regards
Yeah.
to amount that they're providing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially if
so-
they're like you'd only have to do it in the hard parts of the fight for healing, right? And then the
Yeah.
chill parts, they're just buffing damage.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm actually looking forward to next tier to see how augmentation shakes out there. I think that'll be fun to see. I think there's a very good chance that 4 is the number that we do see.
That's assuming that they. I hope they at least like hit their stack ability a little bit, right? Where it's like they that 4 isn't the optimal number.
Loki, if they just made it so that each person could only be affected by 3 or 2 Ebon Mites instead of 4, that would probably bring that number down. So
Well, I just think the Augs shouldn't be able to multiply on top of themselves. That's silly.
yeah, that's it's tough to solve that though without making it so that like
I-
2 augmentations are bad in the same raid.
Yeah,
Not
I have played
possible, though.
Aug in Raid, and it feels quite a bit worse than it does in Mythic Plus, where you don't really have to try
Yeah,
at
because
all.
you don't.
just
In
buff
M
it.
plus, you just press Ebon Mite and it hits your whole group, right? And then raid, you have
Yeah.
to do all this juggling, which is skill based, but it's I think most dogs find it less fun than just doing the rotation and having it buff everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have to rescue my Warlock into my Unholy DK so I don't buff a Feral Druid or something. Yeah.
No, you're rescuing them for the shield, of course.
Yeah, true.
All right,
I
well,
like that idea. Sorry, one more. Just my thoughts
ahead,
on it. It's like I like your idea of not letting Ebon Might stack on people, because if you have 2 Augs, I mean that gives them a more even distribution anyway, and that would just improve everybody's quality of experience in the raid. I think, except for maybe the Aug Evoker who's trying to parse like, oh, the other Aug Evoker sniped the Unholy DK on pull before I could. That's the only downside I feel like.
yeah. Well, because that's basically what they did is they made it go from unlimited to 4 being the amount of Ebon Mites you could have on you, and taking that number down would reduce the like that would be kind of the band-aid way of making it so that you don't play 4 augmentation evokers. So we'll see if they well I don't know. I'm along for the ride either way for 1 tier, and then if it's a problem, hopefully it's fixed for next tier or for the
Do you
tier
think
after.
in
or whatever.
general, healers have had talent issues where they're not actually giving up stuff like in raid and honestly in M plus as well, where it
Oh.
feels like the talent system was designed to like have sacrifice in mind, but it feels like is there any classes actually sacrificing anything? Like not even just healers, but like in DPS or tanks, or is anybody actually sacrificing anything?
I don't. None of the classes that I play feel like they are really. And if you are, it doesn't really feel that bad because the stuff you do take is like really, really good. Yeah, I think healing, like you got so much more than what we've ever had before. So it's like feels really good right now.
Actually, Unholy, I was looking at this yesterday, but Unholy, you sacrifice improved Death Strike for more AMZ healing and runic power. And so it's like your Death Strike actually doesn't do anything if you don't have that talent. I was trying to keep myself alive, and I was like, what? I'm only going from 10% to 20% HP without
Yeah.
dumping half my runic power? This is terrible.
Yeah, there are a few trees where like I think the bear spec tree as well does have some interesting agency in it where you're giving up some good stuff and getting some good stuff, but it's kind of masked by the fact that whatever talents you pick are it's gonna work, but in theory it's interesting at least. All right, let's move on. We'll talk a little bit more about the meta and stuff, but first we have our tip of the week segment. In honor of Theun being here, I've chosen a shaman tip of the week, which is if you're playing a shaman, you have the spell Astral Recall, which you might be used to Hearthstone being a strict 10-second cast time.
No way.
But Astral Recall is actually a spell cast, which means it does scale with haste, which means if you ever need to get back fast, you can either put on a good haste set or Bloodlust. And if you're playing a shaman, you do have the Bloodlust button. So that's a powerful little tip for anybody who's trying to Hearth as a shaman: hit your lust, then hit your astral recall.
He just out RP'd you.
It's better
Dude,
than
he did this in his vault video this week, going from the catalyst back to vault tracking because he
I
wanted
did,
to
and
fly.
then somebody in the comments of that video was like, "You should do this as your tip of the week," and I was like, "Yes, I should."
Whoever that was, screw you.
Oh my god, man!
And
There's
then
no way.
another tip that I was tagged to the thing on Twitter that because I used this to back at the start of this expansion when people were doing dragon riding races, and now that there's the Kalimdor Cup, if you aim your camera upwards and then press your 2 button, you actually get a lot more speed than if you just press your 2 button while aimed forward. The 2 button is the one that brings you up. But if you aim your camera upwards and then you press your 2 button, you get as much altitude but way more speed. So if you're having trouble with any of the races that have any of that vertical component to it, try tilting your camera up with like right click held down before pressing your 2 button, and you'll find yourself with a lot more speed.
Do you have any tips for totemic projection by chance?
No, I don't. That's too intense for me. I'm not a totemic projector.
Oh, you just macro that in.
That's the one that relocates your totems?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are there any totems that can give you haste? They could help you cast your astral recall faster.
Don't think so. No.
Okay. Well, I'll get in the lab and I'll look into some tips for next week on this one.
I know they use totemic projection to what's that lightning field totem or shit, something that they have in PvP. They
Counter-Strike?
No, it's like I don't know. It's like
I know what you're talking. It's like a new one, but I know what you're talking about.
They absolutely just like slam people around the arena with that thing. The thing zones.
That's cool. Trell, what is your tip of the week?
Oh, mine's not much better this week, to be honest. But
yeah,
I'm
sure it's gonna be great.
A very popular tank spec right now. I have a friend, Borgeron, if you guys know him. He has gotten the rank 1 title on Bear without pressing iron for a single time.
Wait, what?
I'm sorry, what?
Did
he macroed into Thrash?
He hasn't macroed into Thrash and Mangle, and he's never ever pressed it.
Does he play Wildfire?
I don't know, but the funniest part of this is you can't even use your battle res because every single time you press a generator, you're spending your rage.
Press swipe
good.
like 20 times and get your battle res.
Wait, he has it bound to Mangle too?
Yeah. So my point is, you too can get rank 1 without pressing your defensive.
Oh Jesus Christ!
We need this with shield block for Prot Warrior. Need this for all of them.
We're going back to the classic days of Hunter 1-button rotation. It's very good.
That is Guardian Druid is legitimately you could probably play with 3 buttons.
All right, Theun.
Obviously, you shouldn't do that. By the way, definitely don't do that. Sorry.
Well, I mean, it works. It's not that bad.
But you know what you could do as a Guardian Druid if you're unable to battle rest somebody, you could dream walk out of the dungeon, reset the key, and dream walk back, and then be presented right in front of the dungeon.
That's good tech.
True.
All right, now we don't require our guests to have a tip of the week. Theun, if you've got one, you could send one, but otherwise we can advance.
I do have one actually, because I've been playing Disc Priest recently in Raid, and my guild doesn't like doing healing cooldowns every single week. Whenever we're swapping, like I think all of our healers have like 6 different alts or something. But I've actually been utilizing the personal note of like method raid tools, and you can use that with like the weak aura that everyone uses that shows like, hey, my cooldown's coming up and I should press my cooldown at this point. You can use the personal note if you are playing a spec that you've never played before, and you can also do this for like personal reminders. So even if it's not for like a spell or something, if you just want a reminder at like 2:19 into the fight, then you can kind of set up a thing. And I'll post like an example note so you know like the syntax and whatever of what it looks like in like one of the channels, I guess. It's been super helpful.
The Kaze weak aura, right, to have it pop up on your screen like when to press the button.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ones. I think there's one from like Liquid that has been floating around, and then also from the guy that you mentioned as well. So
yeah,
that's really useful for non-healers too. You might want to take note of this. Is like using this method, you can have notifications of when to press like AMZ on a fight, not have to think about it at all. So it'll like pop up with a bar, or your note will start glowing, or maybe both, depending on what you got.
it's also particularly useful if you have like a spreadsheet of like damage events that you were like cooldowning on progression. That way you can really make sure that you have something for like the most important ones.
Even stuff
Yeah.
like, you go pick up the next bomb that spawns on Sarkareth, right? Like just put that in your personal note, and then it comes up and it reminds you you've got a job you're about to do. Or if you ever have like a thing that you forget when it is at the fight and you've been caught out, just put a reminder for like it's this moment now, right? And like get your brain going. So, or rather, get your brain no longer involved with it and get yourself a nice little reminder to help take some pressure off. Yeah, those things are very powerful tools. All right, Tettles, what is our clip of the week this week?
Oh my gosh. We're really running dry on clip of the weeks that are like particularly useful, so we picked one for entertainment this week. So whenever the bombs explode on Mythic Sarkareth, they actually leave behind a black hole puddle, which is not commonly known. Very infrequently do you interact with it, but occasionally, if you get knocked by one of these drifting wildfires and the bomb is baited in just the right position, you are able to get sent through the world.
That is a good clip. Yeah, that's why you start on the side you do, is because you put them all over there, but then they despawn after 3 minutes, so you're good to that spot again in the last phase. But that's why you don't play P2 on that side. You play P2 over on the other side. Very, very, very good clip.
That is really funny that she died in P1 to falling in a hole.
I've never seen
Yeah.
somebody fall through the hole in P1. That is a new one for me.
The best part is there's an Ankh totem down there for Death to the Glittering Surge, but the hole teleports you out of it, so you don't even die to the Ankh totem. So really a clip that is doing a lot of work. That's a good one. All right, let's move on to some more discussion about the metagame and stuff. This one, I expect will be a little bit shorter, and then we'll get to Q&A.
Yeah, we have a decently long Q&A today.
Yeah. So tell us what sort of things you want to talk about the meta.
I think it's actually pretty interesting, the raid meta in particular, especially with what we saw this season. So something that wasn't necessarily addressed in Theun's video, and something I actually had a couple of questions about, like how does the raid meta really affect like what we're seeing? Because for season 1 it was like double preservation evoker, disc H pal, and then this season it was like double or triple H priest a lot of spots, and then it was like an H pal and then like a raid buff healer. Like how does that really end up affecting like the fights themselves? Is H priest like actually involved in a lot of this with, I guess, things like symbols, because they're able to keep your personals up at such a high rate?
Yeah, I think symbols like it got reworked, I think, right before Sepulcher, if I remember correctly. After Sanctum, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
And since then, it's been like heavily utilized by the top guilds. And then, the farther you go down, if you don't have like a weak aura or something saying like, hey, you just got your defensive back, it actually requires you to like press a defensive. So naturally, the further you go down, the worse it's going to get. And because, like you said earlier, like we have so many different personals now, you can literally have a defensive for every single mechanic in the fight. And it's often better than, like, I think symbols is not really talked about enough, but it's probably the best damage reduction cooldown that healers have currently. It's like not as powerful as barrier, but barrier's like a really small circle and requires you to like stack for it. And symbols is just like aura mastery, in that you can just like use it and everyone within 40 yards gets access to their personal CD again. So
I don't know how everybody's guild does it, but we personal our first group breath soak on Sarkareth, and then we symbols in between the lines that you have to soak to get the second set of your debuffs off. And those and that allows you to personal both of them, and it is quite good.
Yeah, it's like a noticeable difference. We went from when I got my first call on my shaman, we went from like double holy priest to one holy priest and then a shaman, and it was a pretty big difference. Our guild was very scared whenever I pressed Spirit Link, and we were at like 10% HP. So
how's the raid buffs been for healers? Tank is typically the role that ends up bringing the forgotten raid buff. Like how's that for healers with Devo aura plus rep aura, and then I guess fortitude probably being the two most common ones?
Yeah, I think like you're probably always going to be running like a priest healer and probably a paladin healer. So those have been locked in for years at this point. Priest being either Disc or Holy, or maybe both in the same raid team. And then the last two have been like flexible over the years. So like season 1, it was like Evoker or double Evoker, just because they were like really powerful. And then like this tier, it was like double Holy Priest, Paladin, and then the last one could be like anything. And you just brought whatever raid buff you needed, because all the healing. This is probably like the first season where healing was actually like fairly balanced going into this to the tier. So Liquid used all Resto Druid for World First Sarkareth because they didn't have a DPS Druid in the comp or Guardian. And then like Method had a Resto Shaman. I think Echo had a Mistweaver. So I think like the first 4 guilds all had a different healing comp, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe first 5 guilds or something. All had just different healing comps throughout the entire tier, which is actually really nice to see so much like diversity. I do think they probably need to tackle like the stacking Holy Priest and like always taking a Paladin to every single fight in existence ever for the past like 10 years at least. That would be nice if there's a little bit more diversity at times, but
well, they just made it more required because now you want 2 Paladins regardless of role.
Yeah,
for Ret Aura and Diva Aura.
Yeah, I will say, as someone that has like one of the few specs in the game that does not have a raid buff, Resto Shaman, it's really demoralizing to be in the raid group. I'm not even planning on playing my Resto Shaman next year unless it's really really broken. Just because it like, if there's a fight that you can cheese with like Spirit Link, then great, it's really cool. But otherwise, it doesn't really give you anything. And like at least Resto Druid can, like that we saw this tier, at least you can play better DPS specs or something if Boomkin isn't doing so hot or whatever.
Yeah. What if they gave Resto Shaman Wind Fury?
Wind Fury would be kind of cool.
What if they gave
weird,
Sky Fury?
Dude, if they gave them
Sky
Wind
Fury
Fury, they wouldn't get to be in the healer group. I don't know if you guys have the healer group party chat phenomenon in your
it's so
raids,
good.
but yeah, in my raid, they really start yelling if you take them out of the healer group, and they want to go back there. So
my raid, they have like a secondary Discord call going on at the same time, I think.
Wait, what? They're in 2 voice chats at once?
We used to do that in BDG. Yeah, it's actually kind of nice.
like a
'cause then you
browser
just, like,
Discord tech.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just like flame your DPS players in real time without actually having to type. It's very good.
Can somebody heal this fucking moron?
Whenever I die without health potting, I just like know they're talking shit.
Oh yeah.
How is like DR versus throughput healers been? Because I feel like for a long time it was always just like DR healers such as like HPAL and Disc were super super dominant, and then like throughput healing was a bit of a joke because you were never gonna die, like to lack of throughput.
Yeah, I think they finally kind of caught on that like DR healers are really good, and probably after Castle Nathria, maybe after Sanctum, they're like, okay, let's actually like start balancing Disc Priest properly. They didn't really do this for Holy Paladin ever. Still haven't, I don't think. But yeah, like Holy Paladin, Disc, and Shaman are the 3 healers with damage reductions, and they also give you a lot of other stuff as well. And so that's what we played for the past 7 years. And then recently, I feel like they've been balancing a lot more fairly. So Disc is usually like underperforming in terms of HPS, but whenever you add in like barrier and stuff, it's still really good. So it's been a lot closer, I think, recently than whatever was in the past.
Would you call Disc balanced right now?
Right now, definitely no. Disc probably needs nerfed. Unfortunately, because I actually think it's like a lot of fun. Because I've been playing it recently, but it is. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm still like keeping up with all the other healers currently. So it probably could use a nerf.
But we didn't see it in the Race to World First chatting.
So
they gotta be bad.
True. Yeah.
Dude, the Holy Priest thing is interesting as well, because like if you're playing with hunters and rogues, and Symbol of Hope is just reducing the cooldown of Exil and Crimson Vial, it's like not actually making them any tankier.
Yeah.
If a rogue dies, regardless of what has been pressed, they're
Rogue, dude, I'm telling you, Rogue is sleeper squishy, man. That spec is they've got cheat death, but if you're in a fight that's gonna take your cheat, you're gone. I don't know. If
Especially
feint
fights
isn't
where you
good
can't
against the
feint it.
damage, yeah.
Or like you're
Okay,
getting
if there-
bleeds, yeah, they're
If there
super
are fights
squished.
that you're not able to feint the large amount of damage, yeah, okay, sure.
I do think they probably need to consider Holy Priest like a DR healer, or at least like probably shouldn't be doing as much throughput as like Preservation Evoker or Resto Druid or Mistweaver Monk, because those definitely don't have DRs, and Symbols of Hope is probably a lot stronger than what Blizzard realizes. But they've definitely done like a lot better job recently, as like Holy Paladin, Disc, and Resto Shaman are usually on the lower end, and then the other healers are usually a little bit above them. Sometimes a little bit too much, but
Yeah, I think you're right though that the raid meta is, I think, on an upwards trend from previous expansions, and there's
yeah,
still some work to be done on the priests and paladins, but everything is at least a lot closer, and I feel like it's a problem less far like as you start getting further down in the guilds, it starts being a lot more balanced, which back in like you're trying to do Queen Ajara, world 1500, you still need a disc priest or two, or else
Yeah.
it's nuclear difficulty. So I think this is definitely moving in a good direction there. What about an M plus? How are we feeling about the M plus healer meta?
So I like playing Holy Paladin.
That's good. That's good news, actually.
Yeah, I do get invited to keys my Holy Paladin. I think Mythic Plus healing is really weird. It's like it has to be a really versatile role, because some seasons you really need to heal. Like this season, I think is probably a lot more healing intensive than most of the previous seasons. And then there's some seasons, like season 1 after a lot of the healing checks got nerfed, that you kind of just played the healer that did the most damage, which was Resto Shaman in season 1. So that's, I think, something that healers have to be kind of like versatile and like willing to adapt to, is like, do we need a lot of healing this season? Okay,
Yeah.
then like we're probably going to play healers that do a little bit more healing than everyone else, versus times where you're dropping Ashen Hollow and out DPSing your DPS players.
What do you
Oh
think
my god,
about,
that was the worst.
What do you think about like damage? Okay, I titled this like healing throughput versus damage versus utility. I guess utility wise, how have you been feeling about interrupts on healers this expansion?
Feel about what exactly?
Interrupts specifically.
Interrupts. Ooh, so that is something that I do dearly miss playing Priest. I wish they would just give that to Priest as well. But yeah, it's. I mean, Holy Paladin has a melee kick, which is like good. Melee kicks are usually better than ranged kicks because the shorter CD, with the caveat of Shaman, obviously. Mistweaver is a melee kick. Resto Druid is a melee kick, right? So like it's nicer that you actually have access to more kicks, because a lot of the dungeons have interrupts and stops. I feel like there's more interrupts and stops than there's ever been before. So it's nice that you have access to the tools. Kind of wish everyone just had access to some more things though. Like I don't know why Priest doesn't have an interrupt, for example.
Dude, the B-Res and Lust situation as well. It feels like an M plus. It's often your healer that is filling that when they don't make specs like Holy Paladin right now. And you're like you look at something like Mistweaver that's got neither, and it's just like I feel like some standardization of B-Res and Lust would be good, or at least buffing the engineering and like leatherworking alternatives so that it's less bad to be missing the real versions. That's
Hey, at least
Yeah.
Mistweaver brings Mystic Touch. Oh wait, that's
true.
like nobody.
That'll buff your bear.
Yeah,
That's good.
like I think raid buffs are a little bit trickier in Mythic Plus, but like like you said, season 1, it was both Preservation Evoker and Resto Shaman because you didn't play DPS Lust.
Mhm.
With the augmentation existing, I think that's
True.
not too much of an issue. But yeah, like B-Res and stuff as well is also. I kind of wish just every healer had access to those things. I don't know. Maybe that's just asking for
I
too
agree,
much.
yeah.
But
Like in any given season, it's a different healer that's either not getting to play because they don't have B-Res, or not getting to play because they don't have Lust, or Mistweaver, both, depending on the season, right?
It's because there's just like unique things that you definitely want every single season. I mean, this season it's honestly like Mind Soothe and
right. That's the
Mass Dispel,
biggest
which,
thing.
Yeah, which is. I think that a lot of people thought that Disc was going to be the meta healer coming into the season because of that, and then it ended. I mean, Shadow Priest ended up being fucking crazy.
yeah,
I also think that I think all of us share this opinion, maybe, but every healer should be able to dispel poison and disease,
Please.
and maybe even curses too. Like, why not?
Maybe even curses.
Yeah,
I disagree. I think that they should design those effects to be less punishing if you don't have the right dispel for them, but then still have
agree
it be some specs can dispel them and some specs can't.
Okay, that's true, but
we
there's
agree that the
fights like
current
the last
status
boss
quo
of
is not
Meldaris.
great on some bosses. Yeah, like that's not good.
It's
yeah.
like the
Also,
whole bleed dispel problem in third boss of Ultimate too. Like that kind of thing is just like how can a 25 be easier than a 20?
The
with a
bleed
different
dispel
comp? That's
situation with
crazy.
evokers is wild. Yeah,
yeah, that button's
is-
a little overpowered, I think.
The issue is ultimately like double dispel, mass dispel, like situations where you need double dispel, situations where you need mass dispel, or situations where like an off dispel, such as like a decurse or a poison dispel or whatever, is mandatory. Those are all, in my opinion, pretty problematic. And I don't think Afflicted does any favors to compositions that don't have a decent amount of copies, because if your healer has to burn a dispel and then say, I mean, like last boss of Uldaman is the one that came to mind, but that's not even like a great thing. But like, say you want to dispel there, for example, you're just not able to.
Yeah, I almost kind of wish magic dispel and then your like utility dispel was maybe different things. It feels bad because it's two different dispel binds now. But like there's so many times where I would want to dispel like a poison and I can't because there's an important magic debuff or like an afflicted
Yeah.
spawns and I'm the only one,
Yeah.
and it feels so bad to not be able to like do those things when I want to. So
It's very unintuitive for the non-healers too, because they're like, well, surely my healer will dispel this affix. That's a dispel of affix, and then also we'll get this mechanic that I don't even know exists on me right now.
yeah.
All right. I think that's some good discussion on the meta. We've got actually quite a few good Q&A questions to get to. So we will head over there next. But first, we get to thank our supporters over on the Patreon, which Tettles is rapidly updating as he has realized that he hasn't yet done that. Okay, our first one actually does not have sent a
God bless.
Discord image, which we
God
will
bless
allow.
that it's an image. I'm stalling.
We will allow that. There's our first supporter. No verbal component, just an image. So if you're listening along,
Get in, loser. We're injecting IO.
okay, Trell will narrate the meme.
Yeah, Dratnos not shouting out for the people who are only listening on their commute to work.
Trell's helping out. Trell's our meme narrator. What do you mean? It's it's a good distribution of labor. Then playing Warlock is actually fun. Now, if only I was a meta M+ spec so I can farm aspects. Mega Dungeon is the place for those. Never Nude, Jaw, King of Skills, Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, Chewy. Dratnos, I can't believe I had to explain the joke last week. Tettles, yeah, I totally ruined the sequence here. Trell. I see. Well, at that point, I'm definitely fucking awesome because my wife is awesome. Salty Senny, ZibXX, Necros, Tegtil, Nevuk. EV Year, the Spear is extended into 2023. Bless up. No Trick, I forgot I was sub tier. Dymat, Rework Mistweaver. Wild and Moki, or Moke, I don't know. I'm not sure if there's an E to pronounce here. We're both soundly defeated by the undisputed Rep Pally of X Team. Long live Pally Ho. US Proudmore. Nix. Oh boy, big news. Metacomp is still a thing. Gallic, Brusif, Dratner Sharps Abyss. Feels okay, man. M Sanity, Xena. Rogue is now good enough for prog, but still bad enough to be sat for SLG. Bless up. Red Color. YouTube.com/Workbringer. Alphabet Soup. Druid Friends of Nevermore. Number 1 Simski for Trelsky. Lurka is leaving the East Coast for the West Coast. Does anyone have any recommendations for fried chicken over there? The Thunder from Down Under needs his chicken fix. Milk, Sife, Pone, Windwalker Monks deal with nerfs by rolling with the punches. Thesaurus.com is a powerful tool. The Marsh Hare. Just watched Titanforge podcast episode 49 for the first time. When will Trell be reading names again?
No.
Oh, dude. Oh, next week. Good comms. No, good comms.
No.
Good comms. Thank you for listening to the Titanforge podcast. It's brought to you by Daddy Dratty, Grampy Trelsky, and the Tuttles Effect. Big Head Small Brain, King's Honor, fellow horde. It's me, your newest guild member. Juniper, Best X-Pack ever, Husky Dog, Rat Run, Jatto and Honey Chunk forever, Chauncey, that moment when your tank says, now where's my ranged at during Jade Serpent Dragon Boss and bricks your key. Feral Druids in the MDI, you've got to be kidding me. Oh, you don't have that yet? Boom. Sire Dematicus solemnly swears he's up to no good. The small mammal living in Dratnos' shirt. Sapphire. Pogmentation of Ogre buffs make me feel like a real man. Rework DKs, please, Blizzard. I will buy you a shredded beef grilled cheese dipping taco from Taco Bell for $3.69 before taxes.
I had that
deal?
the other day. It wasn't too bad.
I'm I'm losing my mind to Neltharion Week auras and Wolfram Alpha Gamer. Thank you all for the support and continue with the extremely hinged names.
Dude, I love how we have Theun on now for the Q&A. Whenever Theun submits a Q&A question, like every other episode.
Yeah, well, good. Those are good questions. I always look
Those are
forward
good
to those
questions,
ones.
yeah.
True.
All right, our first question comes from Squishy, another frequent good contributor and guest to the show, that asks, in all actuality, if you were to tune healing into Season 3, what would we do? Another damage and healing increase, global nerfs to healing damage burst. I guess we already talked about this a little bit at the end of the top there. There's a bit of a list of things, but anything else that anybody's got as a suggestion for tuning going into Season 3?
I think just the three things that I would want to maybe see looked at is either just changing overall healing, changing the impact of healing cooldowns, and then I would love for every single healer to have access to spot healing tools. But yeah, I feel like there's so many ways that you can change healing, and there's probably not a correct this one fixes it option.
Right.
So
hear me out. What if you buff the spot healing, the single target heals, but then as a result, all healers, if you're just in a healer specialization, you get 3 less talent points than all other specializations in the game. Surely that will solve it.
ooh, yeah, that would feel rough. But
that'd be great for everybody. If you just go, yeah, you know what, three less talent points, that's acceptable.
All right, don't let him cook.
No, do not let me cook.
Next question comes from Kyrasis in Discord. It says, ignoring tuning, which healer specs have the best feeling gameplay loops in M+, and why? Theun, what's your favorite spec to play in M+, just on the gameplay loop?
I think Resto Druid is probably my least favorite, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say everyone doesn't like.
Yeah,
I love playing Resto Druid in M+. That's like my favorite healer. That and like Mistweaver I've liked in M+. Whenever you could do Way of the Crane. Dude, Way of the Crane.
Hot take.
2 expansions ago, man.
Yeah,
I also enjoy Way of the Crane.
That's those are fun specs. But Resto Druid's sweet. You're going kitten form.
Back in Dratos' peak, battle for Azeroth.
Did he just meow?
Dude,
yeah.
Did you hear that?
Kitten form.
I
It's
think
OP.
I think my favorite is probably just Holy Paladin. More often than not, they usually have the best spot healing tools, and that is usually what feels the best on Mythic Plus, regardless of tuning and stuff. So even if they're weak at the time, which has never happened ever, but then it still feels pretty good to play Holy Paladin. I'm biased towards Resto Shaman as well. It usually feels, it feels okay sometimes. I think it actually feels really good currently, but just kind of go for by Holy Paladin. But those are probably my two, Holy Paladin and Resto Shaman, I think.
Why is either Holy Paladin or Resto Druid always the best Mythic Plus healer? For pretty much all seasons. I think there have been 2 seasons since the introduction of Mythic Plus that has not been either a Holy Paladin or a Resto Druid season. Why is that?
That is a good question. I mean, both of them do really good healing, in small group content. So, Resto Druid gets a lot more out of their mastery because they have HOTS on only 5 players instead of every over 20. So that definitely helps their spot healing, I think, a little bit. Though everything I say about Resto Druid should be taken with salt. I've never actually played Resto Druid in Raid or Mythic Plus or anything at a very high level.
That's fair. From what I've heard from a lot of healer players that have played Resto Druid is once they introduce Cycle of Life and Death that makes your HOTS and dots expire faster, the gameplay is significantly less fun, but also it seems like it just doesn't work as well for the spec. So maybe that's why it hasn't been as good in the last year or two, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the spec was still good at the start of Dragonflight, but you have a little bit less of a future. Your HOTS go less far into the future, right? So you still do get that element of the reason I find that spec fun to play in M+ is that if you understand the boss and you know when the damage is going to come, you can feel really good about like 10 seconds before you're putting your HOTS out, and you feel really smart when that works out. So I like that side of that's the fun for me of Resto Druid, but I don't know why it's all as good in Holy Paladin.
Holy Paladin, I think, just has a lot. I really hate the argument of like utility because I think that word gets overused a lot. Like if Resto Shaman is good for a season, people start complaining about like Tremor Totem. It's like, okay, like chill. I've never actually talented that thing in my life in Dragonflight. But I do think Holy Paladin genuinely does have like really good utility options specifically for Mythic Plus. So
I think it is quite easy to list a bunch of utility that a class has
Yeah.
and be like, this class is overloaded on utility.
yeah,
That's true.
Um,
Whenever something's good, people really focus on the utility, but typically that's not what makes it good in the first place.
I will, yeah. I don't think it necessarily makes it good in the first place, but I do think it's like you learn how to play the dungeons around that specific utility. So then you're like, oh my god, this utility is mandatory for this dungeon because I've learned how to play the dungeon around it.
yeah.
All right. Next question. This one is a spicy one. Has the idea of healers need to be able to do significant damage as well as heal caused DPS players to underachieve in group content because they know competent healers will make up the damage difference? Theun, how stupid do you believe the DPS players of the world are?
Well, okay, DPS players are not intelligent creatures. Yeah, they don't press health stones, they don't press health pots. They expect us to press their personals for them. Yeah, I think that is a bit of a hot take. And yeah, like I said earlier, I think healers, like there are some seasons where your healing damage doesn't matter very much at all, and whether or not you time a dungeon. And we saw that for a while, at least before the Paladin rework this season. So
I will say that I think that I don't know if I necessarily agree with this take, but I think that part of it is flawed because for a while healers believed that they could get around doing dungeons without pressing significantly contributing damage globals to dungeons, and then at some point that became unacceptable, and so I think that they maybe view that as like they're contributing more than the DPS when in reality it was they were under contributing damage wise in an expansion, and this is probably aimed at Shadowlands more than anything else. In an expansion where them doing damage was the most important thing that they could be doing there.
yeah, I think Shadowlands hurt healing a lot when it comes to Mythic Plus. So like season 1 was dropping Ashen Hollow and watching Ellesmere's team just like pray to God that they can live through the Prideful.
Heart here. Heart here.
Yeah, dude, watching once he stream and he's just panicking, and then Ellesmere's just slapping damage into the Prideful ad, like and then
the worst season ever.
Was it season 3 or season 4 or both seasons that like your priest would like they'd say I'm booning, like top yourself, and they wouldn't actually and it's like, okay, I think that damage healing
received
a lot.
Approximately 0.5 heals from Timbermaw that whole season. 0.5 heals. That guy in melee booning, that's got nothing to fucking do with him.
So based. Yeah, I think the healing that they moved towards this expansion where healers have a lot more like passive damage compared to what we had before is a lot better. So
all right, next question comes from Praston in Discord that says, any tips for improving as a raid healer during farm? That's an interesting one.
Farm healing is always really weird for healing. So healers have like 3 weeks of fun per tier, and then that kind of gets over with, and then we're all like really depressed for the rest of the time. No, yeah, farm healing is always really weird because you like, especially currently, because if you look at top logs, they're getting buffed by augmentation evokers as well, which is it's really weird. More than anything, every single time I like coach someone in healing is if you can record your gameplay back. That's like by far the best tip, even for DPS players, tank players. Just record your gameplay and like look back at it and watch yourself play, because more often than not, you're going to just like watch yourself like AD strafe between globals, and you're not actually doing anything, and you don't realize it until you look back at it later on. So just limiting downtime is like huge, and then making sure you're like properly timing your cooldowns and stuff. Actually, along with the tip of the week, there's a cool website. I will link it because lorgs.io.
Oh yeah, I've seen this one. Yeah.
And you can go to any fight for your spec. Now, it's not perfect, and like going off of just top logs isn't always the correct play, but it just gives you a really quick rundown of like when healers are pressing, or I think DPS players as well. It's just when they're pressing cooldowns, and you can highlight any cooldown that you want. So as a disc priest, I've been like just quickly referencing it between bosses.
Mhm.
And you can also like look at like specific players as well if you know like a given player is like good at a class. So that's been helpful.
How do you feel
That's a
about
cool set.
3 healing and under healing this tier in particular? I feel like under healing this tier is fucking hard.
It's like this tier just is weird because you kind of just need cooldown coverage. It's not like the overall healing that's hard. It's like you just don't have enough cooldowns if you like 2 or 3 heal fights.
Okay.
So that's I think the tricky part and what requires like a lot of like sciencing and stuff. But I do think like if your guild is going to allow your team to like, yeah, we can like underheal this week. That is like a good way to like practice doing hard content again. I think Liquid have actually talked about this because in the past they just kind of want to get in and out and be done with their clears as much as possible or as quickly as possible. And they've even been like underhealing farm just to like keep their healers like in check. Like, hey, like you're still healing and doing everything the same as you would in progression. So
What do you think about doing High Mythic Plus too? Like, I've always thought that like keeping yourself fresh, doing cutting edge content, challenging yourself in some way can keep yourself a better player for raid because the farm periods can be really long sometimes. I don't know if that's true for healers, but it's definitely true for tank players.
I think I've never tanked before, but I have a feeling that's probably most relevant for tanks. Healing feels just way different in Mythic Plus than it does in raid.
That's fair, yeah.
So it doesn't feel like it's challenging the same things, or you're not even like incentivized to press like your like core rotational spells on cooldown because you're like running between packs and stuff. And in some cases, you actually have like a completely different build than what you play in raid.
Yeah. Also,
So-
mana is quite different. I'd imagine you can just unload mana during Mythic Plus pulls and then just
Yeah,
put
and
it all
just drink
back.
between.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
fair.
it's a little different for healing. But I do agree that challenging yourself is like ultimately the best way to get better is just to challenge yourself and like keep doing difficult content. So
Okay, so while you guys were talking about that, I found a use of overlays. Okay, maybe we're gonna take
Okay,
a
little
second to talk
detour
about
here.
overlays. Yeah, take a little bit of a
Okay.
detour. There's been an interesting phenomenon where. So I think that you might have saw this a couple weeks back where Warcraft Logs was talking about how they were gonna scrape things from advanced combat logs and have overlays for
A damage meter,
for
yeah.
damage meter, yeah, just so you can see augmentation of Evoker's damage meter. There has been now like a week or a copy-ish style thing that is creating overlays in game that you can use to map over your game. And I've seen it used to mixed success. And now I've seen some real shit going down
what?
now. This is I just
Oh,
got
wow.
leaked this clip in a Discord I'm in. This is the craziest shit I've ever seen.
This is
gone. This is gone by
well,
Tuesday.
So yeah, this sort of use is, to clarify, this is probably against TOS, almost certainly against TOS to use something like this. So do be careful. But the lore basically is that the game writes to the combat log file, and it turns out it writes pretty frequently, which I guess people didn't appreciate before. And so you can actually get like most of the info available from logs, including positional information, private auras, all that kind of stuff from those logs on a pretty fast refresh rate, and then make applications like this that you can overlay onto your game and will be very powerful. Now, it's already probably against TOS, but hopefully Blizzard fixes this by making it so that the log isn't refreshed as frequently. Like giving it like a 30-second buffer or something would do would go a long way here, because it's not like that would break any good functionality except for that Warcraft logs damage meter overlay, which we played perfectly fine without up until now.
I mean, look at this radar YouTube video too. I mean, you can pull
pull up
this
the
other
radar one.
YouTube
Yeah.
video. Which
That's-
is like, I think this is more practical use, right?
Yeah, let's see. Oh, I found it. Okay, yeah. This is a demonstration of what you can do with this tech on Kazara, where you can see where everybody is and where the nearest rifts are. And this is pretty prototypical as well, because this black background could be transparent. That's where the breath is going to be. And you could actually have players that are being chased by the rays assigned to the closest rift to them. and like draw like a radar so that you don't run over each other. All of those sorts of things are possibilities with this.
Do you think this stuff should be baseline?
No.
The
No, this
first clip,
nobody
yes.
wants this. You want this Court of Stars
No,
stuff
absolutely
baseline?
not. No,
I
absolutely
do.
not.
I want clear
I
animations.
mean,
Look,
I think
you can
clear
see
animations is fine, but I don't think you
But
want
you can
like
see
this.
if you're in the hitbox.
Yeah.
Dude, sometimes you really can't. Sometimes hitboxes are not clear. Just saying. But like,
don't know.
yeah, I mean, in general, this is a little too much.
Either way, I hope that we don't move to a Final Fantasy world where the tech to do this is allowed, but if you ever get caught using it or stream it, you get banned, because that's stupid, and they should just break this at the source so that nobody can use it, including people that aren't streaming. Because I don't think anybody wants to play with these things, but if it's allowed and it works next tier, people will. So
This will not only break the wrist roll. Okay, people complain about having to have weak auras. This is
Well,
a thing that will trivialize mechanics far more than anything weak auras.
I mean, it's already probably against TOS. I wonder if you'd even use it in the Race to World first. I bet it would be a thing of
is
like
it against TOS?
Yeah, it's against TOS
I'm sure it
to
is,
use
yeah.
external programs to your
Probably.
advantage like this. But it's arguably against it. Like obviously Blizzard hasn't clarified on this specific one what they think yet, and that's what they decide to enforce matters more. But it's probably against TOS, at least a strict reading of the TOS already has this against it. So whether or not they change whether this could work, the Race to World First guilds wouldn't use it if you get banned for getting caught using it, because they obviously can't get away with that. But World, we would see guilds advance from World 70th to World 34th, and nobody streaming in that guild, and they'd be playing a lot shorter pull counts than before, and you'd be like, oh, interesting. Wonder how that's happening.
There was a guild that got like World 4th Star Augur that had like spaceship shit for like clearing and whatnot, and it's like, all right, well,
but those are like that's like weak auras, right? That was why those weak auras got banned on but that again, that was like functionality got broken, which is that's what I really hope Blizzard do with this
I
thing,
expect
is break the functionality, don't try and, because there's no way they can enforce it's external programs on people's computers that's like very hard to enforce compared to weak aura stuff.
I mean, you need like anti-cheats and shit like that to actually
which
that stuff, right? Which Blizzard has historically not had anti-cheats.
I don't think people would be especially excited about downloading one or like having one of those on their computer. Even
just use the Riot one. Nobody complains about whatever the Riot anti-cheat, Vanguard
the one that makes
anti-cheat
me
is.
Restart my computer every time I want to play Valorant. Yeah, dude, I hate that one.
Vanguard or whatever.
Vanguard,
the hell it is.
yeah. Yeah, but that's the overlays thing. So hopefully this is a 1 week thing and they're just all nuked from existence by next week. But as of right now, people are expanding their functionality. All right, we have a couple more questions for back to our topic though. Next question comes from Jude that says, I keep hearing that shadow priests are mandatory for high keys, and shadows in parentheses here, so priests in general, but shadow maybe a little bit specifically. And that it's not just their damage, but their utility kit, including PI, Mind Soothe, and Mass Dispel. Then I keep hearing they need to either nerf Shadow DPS into the ground to make them not mandatory, which would suck for raiders, or they need to redesign dungeons to make Shadow Priest less mandatory. Isn't there another better option than these two? What if the cooldown of Mass Dispel was 3 minutes or 5 minutes? What if the cooldown of Mind Soothe was 5 minutes?
Oh, good God. So I don't think it's necessarily just an issue of priest. I mean, I guess this would maybe solve it, but it's more of a problem of like mandatory utility in dungeons in general is not seen as like super fun, whether it be Shroud, whether it be Mind Soothe, whether it be Mass Dispel, and it's not, or like Personal Dispel or whatever. I don't think it's necessarily like a priest thing. I think it's generally people look at mandatory utility, and whenever we're looking at mandatory utility, we're thinking about things like the Brackenhide Mind Soothe skip, and then like, or not the Brackenhide Cage and Halls of Infusion Mind Soothe skip down the Dragon Corridor. Those are the two that are like Mind Soothable. And then the Mass Dispel's like first boss Halls of Infusion, last boss Ultimon, that kind of thing. Where people typically aren't fond of those things seeming to be mandatory.
Yeah, I mean, you could reduce how good Priest is by nerfing the cooldown of Mass Dispel, although that there's functionality you'd lose in Raid that would suck as well for doing that on a few fights. You could nuke the cooldown of Mind Soothe, but I feel like that would be pretty annoying because like sometimes you just miss a mob with Mind Soothe, but maybe that's fine if that happens. I think though that it just the spots like the dragons and Halls of Infusion, where if you have a Mind Soothe it's very survivable, and if you don't, it's like nuclear difficulty. I think you just change those parts of dungeons. Like we've had dungeons in the past where Mass Dispel has been either not important for anything, or has like just replaced a healer dispel if your healer's busy, or has been like medium importance. But there's a lot where it's high importance this season, and I think that is the best way. I agree. We don't need to just nerf Shadow Priest DPS again. That
I don't
that
think
doesn't need to happen anymore. Yeah.
I don't even think it's Power Infusion. Unironically,
Yeah, Power Infusion is
Power Infusion listed
and Power
here,
Infusion is
but,
not
like,
really utility. That's just DPS that doesn't show up on their damage meter. But that
Yeah, I feel like
is
that's
just
an extension
DPS.
of their damage.
Yeah.
Like they should just remove True Sight on the dragons, and then that allows 3 classes to do those skips instead of just 1.
Well, you can also Invis Potion. I think they went really
Or
overboard.
Invis, yeah.
Yeah.
They went really overboard with True Sight just in general in a lot of dungeons to the point where the only way to do a lot of skips is actually with.
So take away half the True Sights and then make the mobs that stay with True Sight immune to Mind Soothe as well. Would be
Yeah, that'd be a good fix.
that'd be what I would do. I think. Yeah.
And then yeah, like they should just tune dungeons to not require mass dispels, or if Warlock was meta, a second dispel. Like every now and then we have something like that where Theater of Pain, you basically had to have a Warlock and high keys. Same kind of situation. One class being able to take care of a mechanic and no other class having a chance at it is kind of ridiculous.
Double dispels and mandatory dispels in general are.
Yeah,
I
and-
think that they need to be really, really aware of what they are doing in the future for Mythic Plus whenever they are designing this.
Yeah, just nerfing the damage of things like that is a really good answer to it as well, because it's still nice to get the second dispel. It's still great. Like you could nerf the Jade Serpent last boss's second dispel by a lot, and it would still feel fantastic to have a mass dispel or a Warlock on that fight.
Yeah.
But
Like
I
you-
think that bursting
yeah.
is like a great example. Bursting is like easier if you have mass dispel, but it's not trivial.
right. Yeah, I think that is a good example
Well,
as well.
It's pretty trivial.
But it's not. But like bursting without it is also not. Like you're not dying to bursting realistically. I mean, you can, but
Yeah, there's a way. Depends on your damage.
I don't know. You ever done a weekly 20? Bursting's actually really hard in 20s.
Yeah.
It gets easier as you go up because stuff doesn't die as often.
It's
well,
easier
see-
to desync. Yeah.
See, Settles has never done a key with my priest on
Press
without
Mass
mass
Dispel,
dispel.
dude.
I did not have it talented, so
That's true. That's a wasted point.
yep.
Don't need it. You ever played with one of those Shadow Priests that doesn't have twin priestesses or whatever?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, that's a good build. That is a good Shadow Priest build. That's a useless point. Doesn't increase my DPS. All right, our last question comes from Hemenia in Twitch chat that says, okay, wild question. How about replacing healers with supports? Every DPS spec would then have some way to sustain itself in the group, but there would be no 100% healer specs anymore.
holy
you-
fuck!
You ready to be sunsetted here?
So I
Bye, Theun.
I am not a fan of supports in general. With there only being one, I wouldn't mind seeing more supports enter the game, but I don't think any spec wants to be completely transitioned into a support from what they currently are. I see like a lot of people like, oh, Disc Priest should be a support, Enhancement Shaman should be. It literally says enhance, and I don't think anyone playing those specs would be happy if they just completely shifted the playstyle into something entirely new, kind of like what Survival Honor had happened to it. So yeah, I don't think I would be on board with that, and I don't know how many they would be looking to add, because we already have 38 or 39 specs in the game. So adding more supports is also kind of hard to do, but I don't know. I hate augmentation. I've been on delete augmentation train since day one, so I'm biased.
All right, well, we've reached the end of our questions here. Thank you so much, Theun, for coming on the show yet again. I guess your YouTube channel will already have links, but people should definitely go check that out, and your Twitter and everything. Any other shout outs or anything you'd like to deliver before we go here?
Don't think so. That's pretty much all I got. What good?
How do you plead towards the allegations that you're a known gaslighter and not to be trusted?
Every healer is good at gaslighting. So we all really think we suck going into beta. And then whenever the tier gets released, you have like a Resto Druid doing 30% of their HPS with a single talent point called Luxuriant Soil. And that's just apparently not overpowered at all. It's fine. Yeah,
Don't
every
talk
healer is a
about
good
it.
gaslighter.
Actually, don't talk about it even.
I had to bring up soil. Okay, it's been on my mind a lot lately. So yeah. Yeah, I'm a Gaslighter, so is every other healer in existence.
Mages, Boomkins, and healers.
Yeah, and Warlocks. And Warlocks.
Let's not forget the Warlocks, and soon to be, I think the Evokers, I think are challenging for some of that spot as well. So, anyways, on that note, that's going to be the end of this episode. We will be back next week with another one. Thanks again, Theun, for joining us this week. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
GG.
See ya.